There is nothing quite like the feeling of watching the person you love most in this world believe a lie instead of believing in you. I remember that Saturday morning like it was yesterday. My wife Laura sat at our kitchen table, her hands trembling as she held her phone, tears streaming down her face. She looked at me with eyes I did not recognize anymore, eyes filled with pain, betrayal, and absolute certainty that I had destroyed everything we built together. When she asked me about the other woman, I had no idea what she was talking about. I had no idea that in 72 hours my entire life would collapse into nothing. Before we dive into what happened next, I would love to know where you are watching this from. Drop your location in the comments below, and if you have ever been falsely accused of something you did not do, hit that like button and subscribe, because you will definitely want to hear how this story ends. Trust me, what happened after that morning changed everything I thought I knew about truth, family, and justice. My name is Barry, and at 29 years old I thought I had everything figured out. I worked as an architect at a solid firm in Denver, designing commercial buildings and residential complexes. It was not glamorous, but it paid well, and I loved the creative challenge of it. My wife Laura and I had been married for 3 years, together for 7. We met in college, both of us studying different things but ending up in the same coffee shop every Tuesday and Thursday morning. She was studying education, dreaming of becoming an elementary school teacher. I fell for her kindness first, the way she talked about wanting to help kids learn and grow. We got married right after graduation and settled into a cozy 1-bedroom apartment in Cherry Creek. Our life was simple but happy. Every Sunday night we cooked dinner together, trying new recipes and usually making a mess of the kitchen. Laura would leave these little sticky notes in my lunchbox, just sweet messages or terrible jokes that made me smile during lunch breaks at work. We were saving up to buy our first house, talking about starting a family maybe next year. Everything felt like it was falling into place, exactly how it should. Laura came from a tight-knit family. Her parents, Frank and Patricia, lived about 30 minutes away, and we saw them at least twice a month for family dinners. Her older brother Derek was a police officer, the kind of guy who took his job very seriously and had that protective big brother energy turned up to maximum. Her older sister Sharon worked as a nurse and was probably the most level-headed person in the whole family. I got along fine with everyone, though. I always felt like Derek was watching me a little too closely, like he was waiting for me to mess up so he could swoop in and rescue his baby sister from a bad decision. About 2 weeks before everything fell apart, I got assigned to a major project at work. It was a big deal, a potential 40-story mixed-use building downtown that could really put our firm on the map. The only catch was the deadline. We had to finish the preliminary designs in 3 weeks, which meant a lot of late nights at the office. I was paired up with a new colleague named Stephanie, who had just transferred from our Seattle office. She was sharp, professional, really knew her stuff. She was married with a 4-year-old daughter, and we worked well together even though the hours were brutal. There is nothing quite like the feeling of watching the person you love most in this world believe a lie instead of believing in you. I remember that Saturday morning like it was yesterday. My wife Laura sat at our kitchen table, her hands trembling as she held her phone, tears streaming down her face. She looked at me with eyes I did not recognize anymore, eyes filled with pain, betrayal, and absolute certainty that I had destroyed everything we built together. Who was I working with? Why was it taking so long? Was I sure I needed to stay that late? I figured she was just stressed from her own job. It was near the end of the school year and her students were taking final exams, which always meant more work for teachers. Looking back, I should have paid more attention. There was one night I came home around 10 and found Laura sitting in the living room with all the lights off, just sitting there in the dark, staring at nothing. When I asked if she was okay, she just said she was tired and went to bed. I thought it was weird, but I was so exhausted from work that I did not push it. Then came that Friday night. I finally finished the project deadline, submitted everything at 9:15 in the evening, and practically ran out of the office. I was so relieved, so ready to spend the whole weekend with Laura and make up for being absent the past 2 weeks. When I got home at 9:30, Laura was already asleep. I took a quick shower, slid into bed next to her, and passed out almost immediately. The next morning I woke up at 7 with big plans. I was going to make Laura breakfast in bed, maybe surprise her with those blueberry pancakes she loved. But when I walked into the kitchen, she was already awake, sitting at the table in yesterday's clothes, eyes red and swollen. Her phone was on the table in front of her. She looked up at me, and I will never forget that look. It was like she was staring at a complete stranger. Before I could even say good morning, she picked up her phone and turned the screen toward me. There were text messages, lots of them, messages from my phone number to someone saved as just the letter S. The messages were intimate, romantic, suggestive, talking about missing each other, about stolen moments, about wanting more. There were messages sent at night during times I was supposedly working late. I felt my stomach drop. I grabbed my own phone from my pocket and checked my messages. Nothing. No sent texts to anyone but Laura Marcus, and a few work-related group chats. I looked at her phone again. The number was definitely mine, but I had never sent those messages. I had never written those words to anyone. "Laura," I said, my voice shaking, "I did not send these. I swear to you, I have no idea what this is." She just stared at me, fresh tears rolling down her cheeks. "Do not lie to me, Barry. I can see it right here. Stephanie, you have been texting her for 2 weeks. You have been staying late with her. You have been cheating on me." I tried to explain. I showed her my phone, my actual text history. But she would not look. She said I must have deleted them. She said I was a liar. She said she should have listened to Derek, that he always knew I was not good enough for her. I had never heard Laura talk like that before. Every word felt like a knife. The argument escalated fast. Laura was crying. I was trying to stay calm, but my voice kept getting louder. And then she did something I did not expect. She called her mother. Within 10 minutes, she called her whole family. I barely had time to process what was happening before I heard pounding on the door. It had been less than 30 minutes since Laura made that phone call, but her entire family was there. Derek, Frank, Patricia. Even Sharon showed up. I opened the door, and Derek pushed past me so hard I stumbled backward into the wall. "What the hell did you do to my sister?" Derek grabbed my collar, his face inches from mine, red with rage. His breath was hot and angry. "You think you can cheat on her? You think you can disrespect this family like that?" Frank pulled Derek back, but barely. Even he was looking at me like I was garbage on the street. Patricia rushed to Laura and wrapped her arms around her daughter, shooting me, looks of pure disgust. Sharon stood by the door, arms crossed, shaking her head. I tried to explain. I tried to tell them I did not send those messages, that something was wrong, that someone was setting me up, but nobody was listening. Derek kept cutting me off, calling me a liar, threatening me. He said if I ever hurt his sister again, I would regret it. He reminded me he was a cop, that he had friends, that he could make my life very difficult. Frank finally spoke up. He told me to pack a bag and get out. Said Laura did not want to see my face anymore. Said I had 48 hours to get my things out of the apartment, or he would have Derek arrest me for trespassing. I looked at Laura, hoping she would say something, anything to defend me, or at least ask them to calm down. But she just sat there crying into her mother's shoulder, not even looking in my direction. I grabbed some clothes, my laptop, my wallet, and walked out of my own home. Nobody said another word to me. The door slammed behind me, and I stood in the hallway of our apartment building, holding a duffel bag, feeling like I had just been kicked out of my own life. I drove to my best friend Marcus's place across town. He took one look at my face and let me in without asking questions. That night I told him everything. Marcus believed me immediately, which was the only thing keeping me sane. At least one person in the world knew I was telling the truth. That Monday morning I went to work, hoping that focusing on my job would help clear my head. The project was done, turned in, and I was proud of what Stephanie and I had accomplished. But at 10:30 in the morning, my boss, Mr. Harrison, called me into his office. Sitting there with him was someone from Human Resources, a woman I had only met once before during orientation. "Barry," Mr. Harrison said, looking uncomfortable, "we have received a formal complaint about workplace conduct." My heart sank. "What kind of complaint?" The HR representative slid a folder across the desk. "Sexual harassment. Inappropriate messages sent to a colleague. Creating a hostile work environment." I opened the folder. It was a complaint filed by Stephanie. Screenshots of text messages I allegedly sent her. Inappropriate, suggestive, completely unprofessional messages. All from my number. All to her number. Messages I had never sent. "This is insane," I said, my voice breaking. "I did not send these. Someone is framing me. This is the same thing that happened with my wife." Mr. Harrison looked pained. "Barry, I want to believe you, but we have to take this seriously. We are going to have to suspend you pending a full investigation." Stephanie was called into the office next. She would not even look at me. She sat there with red eyes talking about how uncomfortable I made her feel, how scared she was to be alone with me in the office late at night. I could not believe what I was hearing. We had worked together professionally for 2 weeks. We had never had a single inappropriate conversation. We barely talked about anything other than work. I was escorted out of the building that day, with everyone watching. By the next morning, rumors had spread through the entire office. People I had worked with for 5 years crossed the street to avoid me. But it got worse. Derek, using his connections in the police department, started his own investigation into me. Suddenly, information about the cheating accusations and the harassment complaint was all over my neighborhood. People who used to wave hello would not make eye contact. A couple who lived down the hall from my old apartment actually stopped Laura in the parking lot to tell her they always knew something was off about me. Within a week, Laura filed for divorce. Her lawyer, paid for by her parents, was aggressive and ruthless. They wanted everything. The savings account we built together, my car, even tried to claim I owed Laura compensation for emotional distress. I had to hire a lawyer, Angela Foster, and drain my savings account just to afford her retainer. Then the messages started. Anonymous texts telling me I was going to pay for what I did, that I should leave town, that nobody wanted me around. One night I went outside Marcus's apartment to find my car vandalized. All 4 tires, slashed windows, smashed, the word cheater spray painted across the hood. I called the police, filed a report. They took notes, asked questions, but nothing came of it. I suspected Derek was involved, or at least friends of his, but I had no proof. The officer who took my statement looked at me with barely concealed contempt, like I deserved what happened. 2 weeks after Laura kicked me out, I was walking back to Marcus's apartment after buying groceries. It was a Thursday night around 8:30, already dark outside. I parked in the lot behind the building and was carrying bags toward the door when 3 guys came out of nowhere. They were wearing ski masks, dressed in dark clothes. Before I could react, one of them punched me in the stomach. I dropped the groceries, doubled over, trying to catch my breath. Another one grabbed me from behind, while the third one hit me in the face. I felt my nose crack, tasted blood in my mouth. They threw me to the ground and started kicking me. My ribs, my back, my legs. I tried to curl up, protect myself. One of them leaned down and said, "This is what happens when you mess with married women. Stay away, or next time will be worse." Then they were gone, just like that. I lay there in the parking lot, bleeding, gasping for air, groceries scattered around me. A neighbor found me a few minutes later and called an ambulance. At the hospital, the doctors patched me up. Broken nose, 2 cracked ribs, bruises everywhere. The police came to take a statement. I told them 3 masked men attacked me, that I thought it was related to the accusations against me. They wrote it down, said they would investigate, but I could tell they did not believe me. I had no way to identify the attackers, no witnesses who saw their faces, nothing. I was almost certain Derek was behind it. But what could I do? He was a cop. He had connections. I had nothing but injuries and a ruined reputation. Lying in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, I felt more alone than I ever had in my life. My wife hated me. My career was destroyed. I had been beaten and left in a parking lot like trash. And worst of all, nobody believed the truth. After I got out of the hospital, something changed inside me. The fear and confusion turned into determination. I was not going to just accept this. I was not going to let whoever did this to me get away with destroying my life. If nobody else was going to fight for the truth, then I would. I sat down with my lawyer, Angela, and laid everything out. She listened carefully, taking notes, asking questions. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and said, "Barry, this sounds like a coordinated attack. Someone went to a lot of trouble to make this look real." We need to find out who and why. She recommended hiring a private investigator, someone who specialized in digital forensics and fraud. That is how I met Kyle Brennan. Kyle was former FBI, spent 15 years working on cybercrime cases before going private. He was expensive, but Angela said if anyone could find the truth, it was him. Kyle started by examining my phone and my cell phone records. He pulled data I did not even know existed. Metadata, location, pings, tower information. After 2 days of analysis, he found something. The text messages that appeared to come from my phone were sent from a different device. Someone had either cloned my SIM card or used spoofing software to make it look like the messages came from my number. The location data showed that when some of those messages were sent, my actual phone was somewhere completely different, usually at the office or at home with Laura. "This is sophisticated," Kyle said. "Whoever did this knew what they were doing. This was not some random prank. This was planned." Angela filed a motion with the court to get access to the evidence in the workplace harassment case. She argued that new information suggested fraud and conspiracy. It took some legal maneuvering, but eventually the company agreed to let us review everything. Meanwhile, I started thinking back to those weeks working with Stephanie. I tried to remember if there was any moment when she could have accessed my phone. Then it hit me. About 2 weeks before the accusations started, I left my phone on my desk when I went to a meeting that lasted almost an hour. When I came back, I found my phone plugged into a charger. I had not plugged it in. Stephanie was sitting at the desk next to mine. When I thanked her, she just smiled and said she noticed my battery was low and thought she would help out. At the time, I thought it was nice. Now I realize that was probably when she installed spyware or cloned my information. Kyle decided to dig into Stephanie's background. What he found was shocking. Stephanie had a personal connection to my wife's family. She used to date a guy named Justin, who worked in the same police department as Derek. They were still friends. In fact, Kyle found social media posts showing Stephanie and Derek at the same barbecue just 3 months before she transferred to our Denver office. This was not a coincidence. This was a setup. Kyle kept digging. He found email exchanges between Derek and Stephanie, messages about needing to teach someone a lesson about helping family. He found bank records showing Derek had transferred $50,000 to Stephanie 2 weeks before she filed the harassment complaint. The payment was labeled as a personal loan, but the timing was too perfect. Then Kyle found the smoking gun. Text messages between Derek and an unknown number discussing the parking lot attack. Derek had hired someone through an intermediary to rough me up. He wanted to scare me into leaving town and to giving up on fighting the divorce. Angela put together a comprehensive legal file. We had proof of conspiracy, fraud, defamation, and assault. We had evidence that Stephanie and Derek had planned the entire thing. The messages, the harassment complaint, even the attack. All of it was designed to destroy my life and force me out of Laura's world. We scheduled a meeting with my company's HR department and Mr. Harrison. Angela presented everything. The technical evidence showing the messages were faked. The financial records showing Derek paid Stephanie. The connection between Stephanie and Derek. The timeline proving this was all coordinated. Mr. Harrison looked sick. The HR representative kept shaking her head in disbelief. They immediately reopened the investigation. Within 48 hours, Stephanie was fired. The company issued a formal apology to me, reinstated my position, and offered a settlement for the damage to my reputation. But we were not done. Angela filed criminal charges against both Derek and Stephanie. Conspiracy to commit fraud, defamation, assault, battery. She sent all the evidence to the district attorney and to the police internal affairs division. When the police, not Derek's colleagues but detectives from a different precinct, brought Stephanie in for questioning, she broke down almost immediately. Faced with overwhelming evidence, she confessed to everything. She admitted that Derek had approached her months ago with a plan. He had never liked me. Always thought his sister deserved better. He wanted Laura to divorce me, and he was willing to pay to make it happen. Stephanie needed the money. She was going through her own divorce and facing financial problems. Derek offered her $50,000 to transfer to the Denver office. Befriend me, get access to my phone, and then frame me for harassment. She installed spyware during that moment when I was in the meeting. She sent the fake messages to herself and to Laura. She filed the false harassment complaint. She did everything Derek asked. The attack in the parking lot was Derek's idea too. He hired 3 guys through someone he knew from his police work, people who owed him favors. They were told to scare me, hurt me enough to make me want to leave town but not kill me. Derek was suspended from the police department pending criminal investigation. Stephanie was arrested. The evidence was overwhelming. Both of them were facing serious prison time. When the truth came out, Laura's lawyer contacted Angela. They wanted to meet. Angela suggested I be there. We met at Angela's office. Laura's lawyer explained that they had reviewed all the evidence. Laura now knew the truth about what her brother had done. She was devastated. A few days later, Laura called me. Angela filed criminal charges against both Derek and Stephanie. Conspiracy to commit fraud, defamation, assault, battery. She sent all the evidence to the district attorney and to the police internal affairs division. When the police, not Derek's colleagues but detectives from a different precinct, brought Stephanie in for questioning, she broke down almost immediately. Faced with overwhelming evidence, she confessed to everything. "Can we talk?" In person, I sent her a short text. "I need time." A week later, Laura showed up at Marcus's apartment. She asked if we could meet somewhere public, somewhere I would feel safe. We agreed on a coffee shop downtown. When I saw her, she looked terrible. Thin, pale, like she had not been sleeping. She sat down across from me and immediately started crying. "I am so sorry," she said over and over. "I was wrong. I should have trusted you. I should have given you a chance to explain. My family, Derek, they convinced me, and I just believed them. I was so stupid. I let her talk. I let her apologize. But I did not say much. Finally, she asked the question I knew was coming. Can we fix this? Can we try again? I love you, Barry. I want to make this right. I will do anything. I looked at her, at this woman I had loved for 7 years, married for 3. And I felt sad. Not angry, just sad. Laura, I said quietly, you believed the worst about me without even giving me a chance to explain. Your family attacked me, ruined my career, destroyed my reputation. I was beaten and left bleeding in a parking lot. And you did not even question if it was real. She sobbed harder. I know, and I am so sorry. You did not trust me, I continued. When it mattered most, when I needed you to believe in me, you chose to believe everyone else. That hurt more than anything Derek did. Because I loved you. I trusted you completely, and you threw that away. She reached across the table like she wanted to hold my hand, but I pulled back. Please, Barry, give me another chance. I will spend the rest of my life making this up to you. I shook my head. I need time to think about this. About everything. Over the next few weeks, I did think about it. I thought about all the good times Laura and I had shared. I thought about the future we had planned. But I also thought about how quickly she had turned on me. How easily she believed I could betray her. How she let her family attack me without defending me even once. In the end, I made my decision. I met with Laura one more time and told her I could not do it. I could not go back to the marriage. It was not about revenge or punishment. It was about trust. Once it is broken that completely, I did not know how to rebuild it. Every time I looked at her, I would remember sitting in that hospital bed alone while she was probably at home, with her family believing I deserved what happened to me. I signed the divorce papers. We split our assets fairly. I did not ask Laura for anything beyond what was legally mine. The legal battle was with Derek and Stephanie, not with her. Derek went to trial 6 months later. The evidence was overwhelming. He was convicted of conspiracy to commit fraud, assault, and battery. He lost his job, his reputation, and his freedom. The judge sentenced him to 2 years in prison and ordered him to pay me $200,000 in damages. Stephanie took a plea deal. She pled guilty to fraud and conspiracy. She got 3 years probation, a criminal record, and had to pay her share of restitution. I took the settlement money and started over. I moved to Portland, Oregon. New city, new job, new life. I got promoted to senior architect at a firm that actually appreciated my work. I started going to therapy to work through the trauma of everything that happened. It helped more than I expected. I spent a lot of time alone at first. Hiking in the mountains, learning photography, reconnecting with old friends from college. Marcus visited a few times, always making sure I was doing okay. Slowly, very slowly, I started to feel like myself again. The nightmares about the parking lot attack stopped. The anger faded. I started to feel peace. Laura sent me letters. Long letters apologizing, telling me about her life, asking how I was doing. I did not respond to most of them. After about a year, I sent her one final letter. I told her I forgave her. I told her I hoped she found happiness. But I also told her we could never go back. Too much had been broken. Looking back now, almost 2 years later, I understand something important. Trust is not just about believing someone would not hurt you. It is about knowing they will stand beside you when the whole world is against you. Laura failed that test, and while I do not hate her for it anymore, I also know I deserve someone who would never fail it. I learned that the truth always comes out eventually. It might take time, it might take effort, it might cost you everything you have to fight for it. But the truth is worth fighting for. I also learned that forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. You can forgive someone for hurting you and still choose to walk away. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is let go and build a new life. So let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between what people wanted you to believe and what you knew was true? Have you ever had to fight for the truth when nobody was on your side? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who might need to hear it. Your support means everything and helps these stories reach people who need them most. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminded you that no matter how dark things get, no matter how alone you feel, the truth is always worth fighting for, and you are always worth fighting for. Take care of yourselves out there, and remember that healing is not about going back to who you were. It is about becoming someone stronger, someone who knows their worth. And that person does not need anyone's validation to know they deserve better.